Hello everyone, this is Howard Dare. Thanks for stopping by. So, I want to ask the question, have women of the West become radicalized by the left? But before I get into it, let me just say thank you to everybody who's been stopping by, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, even donating. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please go ahead, click the subscribe button, click the bell symbol next to it, accept the email notifications. It'll help me grow my channel, and I would really appreciate it. Now, let's get into it. Have women of the West become radicalized by the left? And I think that you can, I don't think you can deny the evidence that women in general have a very hostile attitude towards men and the institutions which they see as oppressing them here in the West. And this has been their line my whole life, right, for like 40, 50 years at least. And I'll be honest with you, let's consider, okay, some of the details of what's going on here. Now, there's a difference, isn't there, between somebody having legitimate concerns about an unjust situation and someone just trying to rip down a system which they see as oppressive. Indeed, we in the West were founded on the principle of free speech, freedom of expression. So, and this is to guard against injustice, the violation of individual rights. Because enshrined within these practices, individual rights, well, that's the basis of justice, isn't it? That's the basis of fairness and equity. And that's the basis of enlightened self-interest. And these are the only principles, right? Like if you were a good parent, these are the principles that you would use to govern how you brought up your child. Anything else would be an authoritative nightmare, right? I remember being in the checkout supermarket and where you check yourself out, and there was a woman and her young daughter, checking out, and the young daughter was helping, and she was putting the groceries away, and she put the meat with the milk, and the mother said, no, we never put the meat with the milk. And the little girl scratched her head and looked at her mother and said, well, why is that? And the mother said, well, we just don't do it. It's not right. The little girl scratched her head and said, well, thanks for telling me because I would have never figured that one out. So here's a whole bunch of rules that you will never be able to figure out because they're not grounded in reality, right? They're just based in someone's overbearing authoritative, injunctions. Now, in the case of the meat and the milk, there's probably very good reasons for that. You know what I mean? In the old days, they would spoil or something along those lines. I don't know. Maybe someone in the comments section will let me know. But the idea that our decisions and what we do is influenced and governed by reality and by fairness and by individual rights. Otherwise, you can't have the cooperation of the other people. And I know that some of you are thinking to yourselves, well, what do I care as long as they do what I want? But no, it doesn't really work that way because other people are strong, powerful individuals as well, right? Like they don't have to go along with a social contract that's unjust. They can replace the king, in other words, right? If enough of them get upset, or the dictator. So, and it's just, and they should, right? So this is your injunction against radicalism, against authoritativism, right? You wouldn't like it if it was done to you, and you would rail against it, and you would organize against it. So what a powerful tool it would be if you could convince people that they were being treated unjustly, when in fact they were just short people trying to play basketball. Right. Imagine how unfair. Imagine how they must feel, right? A team of people 6.5 feet tall and taller versus a team of people 5.5 feet tall and shorter. We've got to set that game up. We really do. And I wonder, if you took the best people that you could possibly find who were really short, and then you just took people who couldn't play basketball worth a dime, but who were in fact tall, and you just put them out there on the court, right? I wonder what would happen. You could do the same with football, I suppose, as well, right? A bunch of people, who are just very small. Actually, the football players, I think they would win. I don't know. These are interesting little tests that we should do. Not exactly scientific, but somewhat entertaining. Now, back to the video here. So we do have legitimate concerns, right? And you know that a quality demagogue will... Quality demagogue. There's a contradiction in terms right there, huh? You know that a strong demagogue will combine the truth with the lies. I remember once I was watching cable TV, just late at night, as younger, flipping through channels, and I came across someone delivering a kind of political speech. And they were standing in front of a podium, and they said, basically, I'm paraphrasing, they said the situation is unfair. Right? It's become unbalanced. That's right. The men can't find their jobs. People are using social conventions to lord over other people and to punish otherwise good, just people. I thought, yeah, that's right. Then he said, good people can't get ahead. Good, hardworking people who follow the rules are at a disadvantage to underhanded, dishonest people who are willing to break the rules. Yeah, that's right, too. Good people are suffering. Unjust people are getting ahead. The people who do the right thing, there's fewer and fewer of them. The people who do the wrong things are getting rewarded, and there's more and more of them. And slowly but surely, as the man's talking, the camera's zooming out on him from the podium. Right, and he says, "Oh, well, we have to do something about this. We are obligated as good people to do something about this." And I thought, that's right, damn it. And then he basically says, we have to rise up at this next election, and we have to demonstrate, and we have to make sure that the people know where we're coming from. Now the camera's completely zoomed out, and behind him is a Nazi flag. You know what I mean? So with every point leading up until the last point, I was agreeing with him, So understand the ability of the manipulator, the demagogue, to take the truth of a situation and then twist it to their cause and to their advantage, right? At that last step, right when they've got the people worked up into that emotional height, that, then they bring out the last point, the conclusion to all of their rhetoric, and it's completely wrong. It's completely false. I have a background as a systems analyst, basically a program designer, you know what I mean? Not just the coder, but the person who's figuring out, the whole thing and all the pieces as they go together. And there's a couple ways that you can make a mistake, right? Like you can have the wrong data, at which point you're going to come up with the wrong answers. The only reason why you would come up with the right answer is, randomly guessing at it. So you're not going to come up with the right answer. And then you can have the right data, but you can make the wrong conclusions. And that's very, very common. That's why you want a systems analyst involved in your project, because you can, most attempts at solving complex problems fail several times. So have the women of Western civilization become radicalized against the men and the healthy relationships within Western civilization? Now, one of the things that women and people who are not getting the results that they want in life, not all of them, but the majority of them, what they want to do is they want to blame somebody else. This is a very common human trait. It allows a person to not really have to take responsibility for their results. So it's very seductive and alluring to a certain personality type. I spoke about the offense industry in a couple of my recent videos because I'm dealing with some people who are highly offended, and or at least pretending to be. And the trick is to pretend to be offended and then to use that to lord over, to punish, to belittle, to control, to extract apologies and contrition from the other party. What a useful tool, isn't it? Right? Like when the boss says you have to be here at 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock, you say, you're singling me out, you're punishing me. And the boss says, no, everybody in your position has to be here at 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock. And then you say, well, you're basically using your male patriarchal power to control me. And it's like, yeah, but you're another man. It's just your job. And if you don't do it, you're going to get fired. And so the man gets together with a bunch of feminists and says, this isn't fair. They're oppressing us, right? He's oppressing me because I have red hair. The answer to that is yes, right? Because redheaded people, need to be contained. How about the South Park episode where Cartman goes on a crusade against the gingers and then finds out that he himself is a ginger. Great stuff. So all of the woman's difficulties and failures in life get attributed to the fact that men are oppressing her. Understand that there is some truth to the biological aspect of that. The female occupies the female role in, the sexually dimorphic species. That's pretty difficult, no doubt about it. Not like, the male role is easy, but I would say it's easier, for humans. So it's very, it's somewhat limiting for the women. It really is. I mentioned this in a previous video. She's not the worker that the man is. She's just not. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is, on average. Individually, sure, of course. A woman could become almost anything she wants. But as a group, no, the men are stronger and they're better, workers and fighters and soldiers and things like that. So there is this natural resentment that the women have. Now, you combine that, so you put them in a competitive market where the women are competing with the men, and there's no way that the women can even keep up with the men. So they're going to get resentful. And then you tell them that the reason why they can't keep up is because the men are oppressing them and that they should hate the men. They should blame the men. Well, this enables them, first of all, what a great excuse for not trying very hard, for not taking responsibility. You just blame somebody else. And it has partial truth, basis in biological reality. Also, there's great money in it from an institutional point of view. There are government grants. There are the establishment of institutions for the purposes of equality, equal opportunity, and that's our way of saying, equality of outcome. In other words, free stuff for people who don't have what they claim they need. Understand that this doesn't just work on women. You can do this to any group of people. You can say to them that your difficulties in life are to be blamed on this other group of people, and if you follow me, I will lead you against them, and we will seek out justice. What an invigorating idea, right? What a liberating idea. What a way of, shirking the great responsibility of your own life. What a great way to become part of a group. Having an individual identity and the responsibilities that go along with it, that's very taxing. People like to become part of the group. One of the greatest feelings that people have is when the conscious mind shuts down and they get to operate on automatic. Like you would think that it was the other way around. Like they say we only use a small percentage of our brain, but the truth is that a large percentage of our thoughts are occupied with very mundane, foolish, distracting types of things, just trivial types of things. And this is why when a person is in a physical zone of activity, like a really great athlete, or someone in a somewhat dangerous situation where they just have to react, and they say that time slows down, the people develop tunnel vision, they can't really hear, they're not really listening to the world around them. And it is in these moments that a great concoction of hormones develop within the human being. This is why people seek out extreme sports like skydiving, giant waves, and mountain biking. Because when the conscious mind shuts down, we go into this automatic mode, and it frees up a lot of the abilities and natural biological proclivities that we have. And, hence the term, and the athlete was in the zone. And they were locked in. They shut down, probably the neocortex. They weren't preoccupied with a bunch of things, and they were extremely focused on their task at hand. And time seems to slow down. So a whole other aspect of our biology kicks in, and people seek out these moments their whole lives. In other words, the man saves up for, a couple of years to go skydiving in Hawaii. Just for, and it's, and you think, oh, it's for the experience of that. No, it's just for those few moments of falling, and when the conscious mind shuts down and the old animal instincts are just there deciding everything. So if you can help people get to that place, they will try to get back to that place time and time again. It is, some of the strongest, powerful concoction of human hormones that we ever have. So this giving up of the personal identity and merging into the group is part of that. And there's a whole set of emotions which kind of need to be stimulated in order to activate the situation. And one of those emotions is danger, is fear, is aggression. It just doesn't work otherwise. It has to be real. Like if If you're in the game and it's the first quarter and you're just getting warmed up and there's nothing at stake, it doesn't work. They don't seem to get there. But if it's the fourth quarter and everything is on the line and they are exhausted beyond all, reasonable limits, and they want to quit, and then they, overcome that, and then they get their second wind and they become focused, that's when this whole situation kicks in. So it can't even kick in within a normal conversation, with a normal emotional interaction, which is what a rational, reasonable person, with emotional regulation, that's where they're at all the time. So you can make appeals to people's emotions. You can absolve them of responsibility. You can call on their sense of justice. You can absolve them of personal responsibility. You can give them someone to focus the blame on, and then you can lead them. So this is what has been done with women, and this is what has been done with a dependent class of people. And they're angry, and they think they're right. And, now the question becomes, if you've got 10 million people who think they're right, but they're wrong, versus 1 million people who are in fact right, what's going to happen? The fact that these 1 million people are right does not mean that they will prevail, because there's 10 million of those people who think they are right, but they're not. And if you're saying, well, okay, 10 million, the 1 million will prevail because they're right. Okay, fine. Now there's 20 million versus 1 million. Now there's 30 million versus 1 million. Now there's 50 million people versus 1 million people. Okay, what's going to happen now? I think the answer to that. So again, the solution for you, the individual man, becomes MGTOW, going your own way. You have to recognize what's happening in the system. And then you have to protect yourself against it. And some of the women, good women, are listening to this and saying, but not all women are like that. That's true. Not all women are like that. But all the women have access to blaming the men. And they do. And it's, at first, it was just a small percentage of the women who believed, in feminism. And now, if you say to women, if you say to most men, what's feminism? And they'll say, it's the desire for equality between the sexes. Like, no, that's not what feminism is. Well, you can call it whatever it is, but it's predicated upon the principle, on the premise that there is not equality between the sexes, that there is some injustice here. Okay, so there it is. Now they've been radicalized. There's no injustice here. There's personal responsibility here. There's no correcting for biology. If you're 5.5 feet tall, you're not going to be a great basketball player against somebody who's 6.5 feet tall, who tries, assuming everything else is equal. It's not injustice. There's no remedy. There's no new laws that we need to institute so that a person 5.5 feet tall can be competitive in basketball against a person 6.5 feet tall. There's no remedy for us to say that a woman should be as good a worker as a man when physically she's not. And to do so is to wallow in ineffectiveness. Is to wallow in an emotional response to just a physical situation. So rather than an equal partner working together with a division of labor, as, men and women should do, the women blame and resent the men. They have been radicalized. They use that as an excuse to indulge the worst aspects of their nature. And it affects nearly all of them. It would be a great personal achievement for a woman within this society to somehow be free of the idea of blaming men. And what do you think that a man like I will do at the first hint of injustice or impropriety or an inability to accurately interpret, the facts around them? What do you think I will do? I'll reject it so fast. I'll turn away from it so quickly. Just as a matter of course, I must. So it's an important question. Have the women in general become radicalized against the men within Western civilization? And even if the individual woman has not, given the fact that you can call upon the radicalization of the majority of them, and that the individual woman will use the social tools of feminism to wield power over the men, predicated on the principle that men have been oppressing women for thousands of years when they have not been. And then you consider the fact that there are certain people whose principles are what govern, their behavior and their decisions. And I think you can understand why we are where we are and what you as an individual, kind of need to do in order to protect yourself. In any case, I'm going to leave it at that for now. I just kind of wanted to offer some of my thoughts on this subject with the idea that it might help. I hope it helps. Let me know what you think about this in the comments section below. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, donate. Support me through PayPal and check me out over on Patreon because there's some stuff that I release over on Patreon that I can't release here on YouTube. And join me again, Howard Dare, as I plan to have more content for you. Thank you, everyone.